In this video, we are going to learn how to solve three variable systems of equations. So we've got three equations and three variables. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this depending on what the numbers are, but I like to do it the same way each time so then I don't confuse myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the first two equations and get rid of x, and then I'm going to look at the second two equations and get rid of x. So I'll be left with two equations with two variables. So I'm going to use elimination to do this. So if I look at the first two, I want to make sure that I can get the x's to be 0 when I'm adding my columns. So I'm actually going to take this first one and I'm going to multiply everything by a -2 in order to get opposites. So let's come up here and do that. So I'm going to have a -2x minus 2y minus 2z is equal to -8. And then my middle equation, I will still have 2x minus y plus 2z is equal to -1. So when I add my columns, I'm going to end up with 0 right here, and then a -3y, and then I add 0 right here also. That does not always happen. So I'm going to have 0 there, and then equals -9. Now I'm going to look at my next two equations, and I want to get rid of the x on both of these. So I'm going to multiply this one by a 3 to get a 6, and this one I'm going to multiply by -2 to get a -6x. So let's do the 3 times 2 first. So I've got my 6x, so I'm distributing the 3 to everything, minus 3y plus 6z is equal to -3. And now distribute the -2, so I get -6x minus 8y, and then plus 2z is equal to -14. So I'm now going to add my columns. So right here becomes a 0, and then I'm going to add my -3 and my -8. So I've got a -11, and then plus 8z is equal to -17. So usually from here, I now have these two equations and I'm getting rid of y or z next. But if I look at this first one, I already have an equation without a z. So from here, I can go ahead and solve and say, okay, well, I've got -3y equals a -9. So when I divide both sides by -3, I get y equals 3. So now I can take that 3 and I can plug it in right here for y. So I get -11 times a +3 plus 8z is equal to -17. And then I continue through solving. Remember, I'm solving for z. So I've got a -11 times 3, so -33 plus 8z is equal to -17. So I have to add 33 on both sides. So I have -17 plus 33, which is 8z equals 16. Divide both sides by 8, and I now have z equals 2. So far in my answer, we always write it as x, comma, y, comma, z. And you can remember this, they're in alphabetical order of x, y, z. So far my answer, I have y is 3, and for z, I have 2. Now I need to solve for x. So I can do that by taking my 2 and my 3 and plugging it into any of these equations. It does not matter which one. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this top one. So if I plug these in, I have x, because I don't know what that is, plus y, so plus 3, plus z, which is 2, is equal to 4. And now I'm solving for x. So I have 3 plus 2, which is 5. And then I'm subtracting 5 on both sides, and I get x equals -1. So this right here is going to be my final answer, -1, 3, 2. So if I take those numbers and I plug them into each of these equations for x, y, and z, it will make all three of these equations true. Remember, you can do this on your calculator by plugging in. So if we look at this first one right here, I can just plug in, okay, well, x is -1 plus y, which is 3, plus z, which is 2, hit enter, and we get 4. And then on the next one, same thing. I can plug these in my calculator. So what I mean by that, you'd be plugging in a 2 and then parenthesis -1, because that's what x is, minus -3, because y is 3, plus 2 times 2. And hit enter, and you should get -1. And then the same thing on that third equation. So on all of these problems, make sure to take your answer, those three numbers for your point, and plug it back into all three of the equations. Just because it works for one equation does not mean it works for all the equations. So you'll really want to check all three equations. So this is how you solve three variable systems of equations.